Greetings, my friend. Welcome to the Secret Shop.
Hello and welcome to the Secret Shop podcast. My name is Cymen and with me as always is Anger. What's up?
Hello, nothing much. What about you?
Nothing much, although the week has been quite busy. How are you, Kiwi? How are you dealing with all of this?
I've been better, honestly. It's been really hard watching what's been going on in our sister scene, the Dota scene, and other communities that we share. It seems like there's a lot going on in many communities at the moment. And it's kind of exhausting. I haven't had much energy for streaming or anything.
It has definitely been rough. For those of our listeners who do not know, there has been quite a bit happening in the Dota 2 scene when it comes to women and other people coming out to share their stories of harassment and abuse. There have been many posts that were very hard to read, and a few now former personalities have basically been ousted from the community for very good reasons. But let's get back to Artifact and what's been happening there. For one, Anger and I have finally joined the beta. We're very happy about that. Yes.
Took your
Anger.
sweet time.
Yeah, it took a while. But there's been a couple bigger waves, which is nice. Anger, what have you been spending your playtime with?
I've been doing so much hero draft, just trying to get used to the game, because I underestimated just how difficult it is to manage mana now. Like, not just because you have less of it in general, so you can only maybe use 1 or 2 spells every round, but also the fact that items, abilities, everything costs mana. So when I'm all of a sudden at 0 mana and then thinking, and then I'll use this item, I can't because I have no more mana. So it's been really hard to get used to it, but now that I have played a little bit and gotten used to it, I actually really like it. And I know that's a hot take. A lot of people do not like it.
Do you find the mana thing restrictive at all?
Yes, but in kind of a good way, because it forces you to really think about things, and also it forces you to, when you see that the opponent only has 1 mana left, previously in Artifact 1, that would mean basically they can't do anything anymore. But now there's still the chance that they can use an ability, they can use an item. I think it's a really good change. Maybe it's bad for new players because it can be a little bit overwhelming to think too much about it, but I think it brings in a very fun element of mind games.
Yeah, I personally wouldn't worry about that because I think people have been underestimating the new player as of late, to be honest. I think they are capable of much more than people think. They are not just potatoes with a mouse and keyboard.
Yeah.
But what you said about like the 1 mana crystal or the 1 mana point, as it were, that really can swing quite a bit. It's actually amazing just how many options you have with just that 1 little mana crystal. All the hero abilities, or item equips, and all that. There's definitely a lot to do with that. And especially later on in the game, when like every hero has an item, most of which have an active, they've got their abilities ready, and you have a couple more items stacked up in your hand. There's a lot to be done with that 1 mana. I can see a lot of people, looking at that 1 mana crystal in the enemy's mana pool and starting to sweat a little when they think that they have run out of all the options. That is definitely what I've been feeling about the mana. People are missing the whole split mana pool thing, but so far I've really been enjoying the single mana pool, and in the end you still have 3 lanes to manage with that single mana pool. I think it's just a matter of rethinking mana as a resource and how to distribute it.
I will be honest though, I hated it at first. Like, I was actually very negative to it at first. I thought, okay, it might just be because I'm not used to it, but this feels really bad. But the more I play, the more I actually love it. So I think the people that hate it Because I know a lot of people do. Maybe the problem is just that they haven't played enough. Because I feel more and more comfortable with it.
That was definitely my feeling initially too.
Yeah. Like, I didn't admit it at first that I hated it, but it was kind of at the back of my mind. Like, I was very worried that this was going to be the reason why I don't like 2.0. But please have faith, you will eventually. Maybe a little bit too.
Yeah.
Change is just so uncomfortable, right?
Yeah.
Like, getting used to...
Fuck
like,
that.
it's so hard to tell what you hate because it's bad or what you hate because it's just change and it's new and scary.
Yeah.
Like, well, for example, this week they changed blink scrolls that instead of getting it when a when a tower is half health, you get it when you kill a tower. So you go from having 3 potential blink scrolls a game to 0 or 1.
Yeah.
And I initially hated it, and I still am not sure if I still hate it or if it's better, but I've seen some people that like it, and so I'm just gonna wait a little.
Right.
Yeah. I like
Just
that
testing it
they're
out.
willing to do experiments with stuff still, with mechanics
Exactly.
and such. My suggestion would be that they add some sort of like polling into the client about big changes like that, where we can actually see numbers on how people feel about it rather than is this just a vocal minority or do people actually hate this change.
Yeah.
They also have
Like-
very different changes between constructed and hero draft, and it like changes the meta of what heroes are good just from one little change like that. It's kind of cool.
They have been experimenting a lot. What I find very interesting is what they're doing with the Courier right now. Because it looks like they're slowly revealing what the Courier feature is really meant to be in the end. Thus far, it behaved like a tower enchantment. So it's, it only really mattered in which lane you put it when it comes to the destruction of it. But that is no longer the case. It is no longer a tower enchantment, but you still have to play it onto the board. But I honestly don't think that's going to be the case for much longer. I think that the Courier in the end, at least that's my prediction, is meant to be a board element later on. Just a feature that is built into the game rules rather than anything that you have to activate or play from your hand first.
And they kind of outlined that in the recent patch addressing it by it. Basically, they know it's a band-aid mechanic or that they're unhappy with it as an end result.
Right. What do you think of it as like a band-aid? Because all it really does is bring you back 1 mana for the first item you play. Is that really necessary in terms of design? Do you feel like it's just meant to encourage items being played?
Did you play much with it when it was an improvement, Cymen?
I did play with it a little bit. I gotta admit, though, most of my time has been spent in the campaign. I
that's
only
fair.
got in 2 days ago, so I haven't had that much time to play. But the few hours that I was able to spend in it, I actually played the campaign in full. Tried out the additional challenges that they have implemented, like the
so
Meepo
hard.
one.
They're impossible. They're actually... Kiwi, have you beat them?
Yeah, I beat them all first try.
All of them?
There was one that I took 2 tries on, yeah.
The one where the towers have 50 health and 10
I
armor?
beat that one.
Well,
Yeah, I
you should
beat
see
that
it
one.
goes up to like 400 health.
What?
There's
How'd
four
you beat
there's
that?
4 levels of it. Did you read the instructions on it?
No.
Oh, well, the instructions are that every creep and hero you have has devour.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, then it makes sense. I just don't like reading.
Yeah, you're supposed to keep playing like units on top of units and they become these
Oh.
monstrous.
A friend of
Yeah.
mine beat it without knowing that and would just make like really big... I don't know what they did, but yeah, must have spent like 10 times the intended time on it. That is an
Yeah.
issue with it, is that it doesn't clearly outline what
Yeah.
the mechanics are in that challenge. But you just want like a Rix to eat. You just eat Rix over and over, and you play like PL and Prelix or any body makers to just delay the game.
Yeah. The problem is that the game doesn't actually change the cards to get the keyword devour. Once they actually do that, it's going to be much easier to understand.
So every single unit has Devour.
Yeah. Like if you even bouncing your heroes devours them.
Oh.
Nom nom.
Anyway, so to get back to the Courier, when you used to get your Courier demagicked, it felt really bad. And like 1 mana a turn, you don't think about it that much, but it really makes a really big difference, especially when like a Blink Scroll was free, or like just the first getting to play 1 item for free every turn is a really big deal. If you aren't able to have that, next thing you know, you've got 3 items in your hand that you can't play. And then you're like, mana 6, do I do a suboptimal play to just equip my items? It felt really bad not having the Courier, and I think it is definitely an important mechanic to have some sort of mana adjustment like that. And I like the Courier as it is. I'm open to other solutions, but it's fine to me. I like it now that it's not able to be removed.
Yeah.
You can also very much account for it and play around it, and so you know that they have that 1 extra mana that is a Courier, and even, for example, you can see that their first item in a turn is free.
Yeah.
I think it'll be visually shown better in the future.
Definitely. Yeah. Once you get that Courier that actually waddles over.
Plus, who doesn't want fun Courier cosmetics?
I just hope that the Courier is instead of the imps. I hope that we're not doing both.
Anger.
Well, I think
I don't know how many times
Courier
we
can
need
just
to
be
bring
the
this up.
imp. Why do we need both? It's fine as it is. Just having the Courier.
You're gonna be doing this podcast by yourself at this rate.
No, listen, I'm pretty sure that the imps are going to be the default Courier.
Oh.
I would be okay with that.
Yeah.
And then you can replace them with different cosmetic Couriers. Get your baby Rashan.
As long as they're called Courier and not imp, I think I can trick my mind into liking them.
Really?
As long
All
as they're
about
not
labeling,
called imps.
is it?
Valve.
It's all about labeling.
Yeah. I'm very dumb, so I'm very easy to trick. I can do it myself. I don't even need other people to trick me.
Yeah, I've just been grinding out the campaign and the extra missions, as I mentioned, and I think that's going to be my first email about the beta, actually. I'm going to do a big email about how I think the campaign should be done, how it should progress, and how it should be visually presented with audio and so on. Because I can say this much already. I do think that the campaign is in dire need of at least some basic voice acting, unique to the campaign.
I mean, we don't know that they're not intending to do that.
Yeah.
Like, I think your input is definitely good, but I think that's something a lot of people are really struggling with, is seeing that it is an early beta and we are still in the long haul. And I don't know. I feel like people are a little too focused on small details that are not the focus right now.
Yeah, let's actually get into that, because I think that a lot of people are, going ahead with feedback that will only be useful literally half a year from now, perhaps. I mean, it's nice to voice something early so the devs know in which direction to go, but right now we're really just looking at usability, hero identity, and so on. Like balance, for example, even though they do some small adjustments, it's not a major focus right now either.
Although they've been really good about fixing bugs. Like, there was maybe one bug that took longer than a week to fix, and everything else has been, you report it and within a couple of days it's patched out in the patch notes. I was really frustrated at people abusing game mechanics that were very clearly bugs just to like win games, especially on Constructed. Like, people are making lists to play bug abuse, and that's not really the spirit of playing a new game in beta. Like, what's the point of that? It really frustrated me, and I had to take a day off because I was just like, I couldn't understand why people would want to abuse mechanics, and then it started becoming the norm, and I got so frustrated.
Are you perhaps
they're all-
referring to a specific Watchtower deck or something else?
No, the one that really bothered me was Anshu, where
Oh.
people were just there was a bug where death effects were occurring when you bounced heroes from deploy, and so people would just play her on turn 1 and bounce her on turn 2 with Drow, and next thing you know, you've got a Drow with 7 health and creeps in the lane with momentum, and it's just like
Wait, why does she
clearly
have
says
7
it's a
health?
death effect. What?
Why does she have 7 health?
Because the Anshu being bounced would count as being killed. And so people were doing this in Constructed, they were doing this in Draft, and it was just a very obvious not intended thing. But like there were quite a few other little bugs that people built decks around, and they were all patched within a couple days, so that was really nice. They're like very much on top of the bugs. They do keep popping up every patch, but they are addressed in a pretty quick manner. And sometimes they're funny, like when I don't know what they did. They changed one of Nyx's mechanics, and then they patched it in backwards. And and so then Nyx couldn't move when he was supposed to only be able to move or something.
Yeah. What do you think about like the pacing of patches that they've been going with so far?
It's great.
Yeah,
It's
it seems
much more
good.
than I would ever hope for. Like, before the first post in March or whenever it was, I would never have expected that right now we're getting, like, weekly updates. It's crazy.
People are doing a really good job, like, finding all the bugs and reporting them. Like,
Yeah.
they're literally beta testers, and it's nice that you just spend 2 minutes reporting them in the client with a match replay ID, and then 3 days later it's in the patch notes, and it's like, wow. And initially it was nice when we were getting Monday updates consistently, but now they're just doing them whenever they're ready, and yeah, it's good.
Yesterday, I reported a bug. It was meant to be feedback, okay? But I was so angry in the moment that I... Okay, so what happened was, I was getting really frustrated because Skywrath Mage... First of all, his spell is insane. Like, his signature card, it's insane. And also, his ability is so fucking crazy. I don't know if I'm just bad, but that's so fucking broken. So, I reported a bug saying that he's broken. And
In
that was
all
it.
caps, the Skyrath hero is broken. What are you doing, Valve? Please fix it.
But
Anger
I
was
have actually...
streaming way past bedtime.
I have also formally sent an email about the fact that I keep getting tricked by... You can't tell easily if a unit is dying or not. Like, there is the little skull, but I need, like, big visual indicators, otherwise I miss it. So, when, for example, it says that you're doing 7 damage to a unit with 5 health, I will think it's the other way around. Because there's no big crossover, it's telling me it's gonna die. So then my brain, like, assumes, because I'm not, like, focusing on it. So then I will deal 2 damage to the unit, because I think it's the other way around. And that's really
you need
frustrating.
that big red X back.
Yeah. And am I a minority in that? Like, have people been complaining about the big red X, or what? Like, why is it not more visible? Do you agree with me?
I found that it was also a little bit difficult initially, but it was just that there was so much going on and everything was overwhelming.
Yeah, I agree.
And so I feel like everybody has had that experience initially, and then you get used to the skull pretty quick. But also, like, you bring up a good point. If that's something that's not obvious when you're new, that should be obvious when you're new.
Yeah, but there's one thing about it not being obvious or whatever, but that means that you constantly, or at least for me, I need to double check every time. Like, it's in Artifact 1, it was so obvious, I didn't need to think about it. But now I have to actually look for the skull, because it's not, like, super visually obvious. So even if like, I don't make those mistakes anymore, it's still, like, more clutter in my brain, if you know what I mean. But I don't know, maybe that's just me.
No, you're definitely right. I think there needs to be a bigger indicator, or perhaps like a little character pointing at it when it's about to die. You know? I think that would be very helpful.
X is enough.
I think you'll feel differently about it in a week, and it won't be an issue anymore. I think
Yeah,
it's just
maybe.
that it's new.
No, but
But
I think,
I could be
I
wrong.
think it does need a bigger indicator, but we'll get there.
For sure.
Speaking of beta feedback, Valve has been on top of the whole hero feedback thing for a couple weeks now, actually, and they are actually sharing the results of it with the community. So how about we just dive into that? At the time of recording, they have given us the feedback to the red heroes and the green heroes, I believe.
Yeah, and then
and
they're
in black.
polling the black. They're polling the black ones right now,
Oh.
and starting discussions on blue.
So let's actually dive into the red heroes right here and what Valve has given us when it comes to the survey results. I think these are really interesting. They are divided into which ones missed the fantasy, which ones players generally avoid picking, which ones are boring, which ones are mean enemy, and which ones are overall misses. At least those are the negative connotations, and then there's the heroes which actually hit on the fantasy, meaning their hero identity compared to Dota, which ones you're excited to pick, which ones create fun situations, and which one are a fun enemy. And they actually said that a couple of heroes such as Ursa and Sven may be annoying when you're playing against them, but they're just fun and good enough when you do pick them yourself that they're going to overlook them for now. However, it looks like the overall misses are actually Pugna and Centaur Warrunner. Enga, I think you're the one who picks red heroes the most. What's your expertise on this? Do you agree at all with the general consensus from the polls?
Yeah, I do. As a red connoisseur, I was also in Artifact 1.0 known as the leader of the Mono Red clan. So I have a lot of expertise when it comes to red heroes, and I do actually agree a lot with this. The only thing I don't agree with is Sven being boring. I guess kind of, but I don't know. I'm still having fun playing with him. But I do agree that Pugna and Centaur Warrunner I avoid picking. But one thing I really like is that, except Pugna and Centaur Warrunner, almost all the red heroes are viable and super good. Like even Keith, the basic red hero, is so good. If you get Keith plus Axe, that's so incredibly good. And I feel like red is just overall, they do so much damage, they have big bodies, their spells are fun. Like in 1.0 with Keith and Axe, they didn't even have a spell. And there's just, I don't know, I think they hit a very nice balance with red between fun to play and also really good and reliable. Because I feel like, it's just my experience, but the other colors seem to be a bit less reliable. I kind of like to know, like, or kind of know, like, have a plan and know that almost no matter what the enemy does, I can still easily come back without getting thrown off the horse. Is that even something people say? And I also love that I feel like they were able to keep the red identity or whatever, you know, being big and bold and powerful but kind of dumb, you know? I love that.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's why I don't have a problem with Sven being boring, because that's kind of arguably what red is about. Not necessarily being boring, but just being reliable, strong, easy, you know?
Right.
They're definitely a good standpoint for learning because they're mostly very straightforward and you can clearly see what they do and then build from there. Sven has been changed a little bit with how deploys got adjusted last week.
Right.
You can now, on the flop, you can place in the 1st and 5th position in your off lane and your safe lane. There's only the 2 to 4 position restriction on the mid lane now. So Sven you can't off lane Sven anymore. He can't just like go off lane and guarantee cleave somebody or like that. And so that's a little bit of a nerf to him, balancing him a bit. I like that the poll felt like the results pretty much matched how I felt. Like there wasn't anything that There were a couple that I disagreed with a little bit, but in general, the community poll matched. Like, it's nice that everybody's on the same page.
So what do you guys think then of the losers?
What do you mean losers?
Well, the overall losers being Pugna and Centaur Warrunner.
Both of them felt a little bit weird. Centaur was definitely boring, and Pugna is weird. Pugna's always been a little weird fitting in Red Identity, and that was kind of okay as an outlier. Like, the improvement destroying makes some sense, but it's weird. So they say that they have some ideas for Centaur, and Pugna's going to be a little bit more difficult, and they're going to be working on that. So I like that rather than they just take the heroes that are the biggest outliers, I guess.
I actually miss his tower hurting ward. That's out, isn't it?
It's what?
Yeah, but his spell kind of does that. It's not quite out. It is a card that exists, but it's not attached to Pugna.
Right.
Nether Ward exists as a card. I think it's called that. I don't know what it's called. But also Pugna's ability hits towers and destroys an improvement. He's not a bad hero at all in Hero Draft, like counter picking a Prelix or a Tinker.
Yeah.
And what about Centaur Warrunner? Valve mentioned that he would be easy to fix by just adding his passive back. Do you agree with that?
What was his pass?
Retaliate.
Yeah, that was just Retaliate.
Yeah.
I don't know. He doesn't feel like Dota exactly. The double edge kind of feels like double edge, but Stampede, I attribute that more to mobility or.
Well, I feel like Centaur in Dota, you don't pick Centaur because you want to use double edge. You pick Centaur because you want to stun. You want to blink stun and Stampede. Like, you don't pick him because of his retaliate or whatever it's called in Dota.
Or his double edge. Yeah, those are the not significant aspects of him.
So I think it could easily be fixed by just giving him a card that stuns in some way, or like AoE stun or something, or deals damage or something that's more like hoof stomp or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It would be a very different hero than what we know, though.
Yeah.
Because then you'd have to synergize otherwise. But yeah.
They're also saying they'd like to give him some stats so he can actually take advantage of his trample. Does that just mean higher attack, or do they mean some sort of addition to feeble? I don't know.
I don't know.
Me neither. Also, they said that Tide obviously needs some buffs.
Tide. Why is Tide not on the list?
Because he was very obviously the big loser.
Oh.
And then the next ones were the less obvious ones that needed some change. So Tide's already had a little bit of a buff, but they're looking at adding more. His cooldown went down one, so rather than alting on 6 and 12, you can now alt on turn 5 and 10, which is often going to happen in a game, especially with Tide slowing it down. Tide has his gush gains initiative and lowers armor and does damage, and so it's really flexible. And if you're playing a lot of red, it ends up being really strong. There's lots of nice combos you can do with it too, sometimes in like red blue or red black. But yeah, he's kind of weak.
I feel like the biggest problem is that you can't really use his ability in the most fun way without having mobility. And with the nerf to blink scrolls, I feel like that was kind of a soft nerf to Tide as well. Because he will just get stuck in a lane. But I don't know, that's my experience. Like, I feel like I can't utilize him the way I want to.
That's kind of similar to Dota, though, that he's kind of useless without a blink dagger.
That shouldn't be the case in this game, though. That a hero should rely on a certain item to be useful.
For sure. I agree with that. I was just pointing out a similarity.
Yeah, I mean, it's a neat little interaction.
What if Ravage has a built-in blink that you can, or not necessarily built-in blink, but you can move this or that many spaces away and then ravage.
Sounds broken.
Yeah, but it would be like it would be balanced. Like maybe the
Wait, this sounds familiar. You know what this sounds like?
Sand King.
It sounds suspiciously like Burrow Strike.
Yeah, I just realized.
Tide has some really cool cards that synergize with him, though. Like there's delving into constructed has been really weird because there's so many strong cards. Like it's really difficult to make a 40 card deck. I mean, that's always been a personal struggle of mine. But there's like Iron Sharpens Iron, which does 1 damage to you at the start of the turn and gives you +1 attack. Or there's the Veterans card that every time you deal damage or take damage, you gain an armor or an attack or a health. And so these things get really big on Tide's tanky body, especially together.
Right.
So you can just make him into like this wall that does a bunch of damage and can't be ignored.
Is there anything else about red heroes that you guys would like to talk about?
Constructed mono red is disgusting, and I don't want to go near it.
What is your opinion on red in Hero Draft? Because I think red is hands down the best color of all the colors I've played.
I think that's a pretty normal view. I'm happy to play against red in Hero Draft every time because they lack some control. Like they're really annoying and they feel really strong, and like you're getting bullied early and then you just end up winning the game. So like they're scary and it feels like you're losing really bad, and then you get a little further in the game and use an Eclipse, or your little 2 damage Skywrath gets to use his flare. Next thing you know, you win. I like playing stuff with control. I think black is far stronger in Hero Draft at the moment. And red doesn't scare me at all. I mean, Axe is really strong, and having a base of red is nice. There's some drafts where you have to pick red too. Like if somebody goes Shadow Fiend, you can just draft big tanky mono red and their Shadow Fiend is useless, or things like that. But then they can also counter you back and discard the Shadow Fiend and play like a different strategy. So it goes both ways.
What does mist fantasy mean?
The fantasy is matching Dota.
No, matching the Dota identity.
Oh.
Whether they feel right.
Wow, it looks like you haven't done any of the polls, Anger.
No comment. Look, I've been busy playing, okay?
These have been out for 2 weeks.
Okay, but
It's
I've
a
been playing
bullshit
other
excuse.
things, okay? I've been playing like Dota and stuff.
Dota consumed you. We know.
Yeah. Look, I'm first of all a gamer, okay?
Alright then, how about we take a look at what the Green Hero survey results were? Have you guys looked at this at all?
That just came out today, yeah.
Yes, it did.
I don't agree with the Farvan thing, avoid picking, and Chen, yeah, if there's nothing better, but I will still, like, favor him over, what's his name? Darkseer. Like, I don't know, I feel like, especially Farvan, like, I will very happily play Farvan.
Okay, so they outlined that Dragonite and Dazzle need some reworks. I think that's definitely true. Dazzle's really hard to make use of in draft because his heal only bounces if you have 2 damaged targets, and so it's really hard to make it work. But I think because of that, people didn't play much with him at all, and his ult is actually a lot stronger than you would think about, especially later in the game. So I was trying to play him and make him work with mixed results. Dragonite it seems like absolute garbage, and I wouldn't touch him at all. And so it's nice that they noticed both of these.
Yeah. What do they mean by mean enemy? And then they put DK and...
I think that is just that the question is not very direct. The question is just how much fun you have playing against it, and I think people answer that for Dragonite because the hero sucks, so it's not fun to play against or to play. But it's not. I think they misinterpreted that where the question is ambiguous, because usually people put low scores if somebody's really obnoxious to play against, like for instance Dro. So you were saying you really like Farvin, right, Anger? Like,
Yeah.
He seems pretty strong. He's got good stats. His creep is good, right? But he kind of doesn't do anything. Like, I felt that way about him initially, too. And then I very much moved towards heroes that have active abilities that have impact on heroes and stuff. Like, for instance, Necro doesn't seem that strong, and then you start playing him, and just the fact that his ult can kill anybody and you get the mana back if they're half health, then it's really obnoxious, and that's a 2-turn cooldown. Or Timber has mobility, or Mirana has mobility, or just any hero that can do a thing feels good. And I'm not saying Farvin isn't strong, but he doesn't do anything. All he does is make
He's
a
boring.
creep. And that's kind of the identity of lots of green. And so in draft it feels a little bit weaker. However, in constructed, playing against some of these decks is really obnoxious, where they just make these big walls and you literally can't deal with them. But also they make the wall and you have a hard time dealing with it, but also they still have to kill you somehow. And they still never really have control at any stage of the game. And so, much like 1.0, it's just an extremely different play style. And that's something that really sticks out to me in 2.0, is that so many of the different archetypes have extremely different ways that you play them. For example, I made like a blue upkeep list that plays like Conflags and Ogre and Path of the Wise and just like all removal heroes. And things like positioning are so important in that list, where you're trying to keep everybody spread out, or like old skills that we had from 1.0 of like trying to stagger your hero deploys, and now with bouncing makes that more interesting. Or Ogre is always multicasting on a certain turn, and so you really want to have both Ogre and Crystal Maiden alive on the same turn, but then you're trying to plan not using a spell in Ogre's turn the turn before, so that you're not using his multicast, or things like that. Like, and then I switched to a different list with say with rapid deploy heroes, and it's just the hero cycling. I don't know, every list I play feels extremely different, and positioning is so much more important, and that like adds this whole extra level of depth to the game, and it's just really cool.
Yeah.
I think the single reason why Dazzle missed the fantasy and is being judged as an overall miss is because he's missing Shallow Grave.
I could see it.
That's true.
Honestly, I think that is like the single reason. And also, I personally find Weave to be a fairly awkward spell that's also pretty expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It is definitely expensive. It gets really good later, and it has really nice synergy with lots of things. But as you said, like, Shallow Grave is much more integral to the hero than Heal, just as Centaur's Double Edge is not integral compared to his Stomp.
Yeah. Especially just let him give people a death shield. You know?
Yeah. I mean,
that's all I want.
If you ever get the Weave off in a lane and you get the Heal off, or if you ever have 2 damaged bodies next to each other and you get the Dazzle Heal off, it's so strong, especially with Weave down, that it'll like double or triple each of the damage, or the first hit anyway. And so it can be really strong. It's just it doesn't work in how Artifact is currently with like heroes trading and stuff. In Constructed, it has a bit more of a place, and I feel like as people get better, they would utilize him more. And so I will not be surprised if the dazzle changes lead to him being OP, and then it goes back the other way after, is my expectation.
Yeah.
He's just really hard to use, and
Yeah.
so we'll see.
I think it will be hard to, like, let's say they remove either his ability or his signature card and put in Shallow Grave instead. I think it would be hard to make his ability and signature card then synergize. Because like you said, Weave and the healing / damage spell, whatever, they synergize very well. But Shallow Grave with either of the other ones, like, it would be hard for
Shallow
them to-
Grave with heal works a little bit, or with
Yeah, I
gaining
guess.
armor, but it's just like, yeah, I agree.
Right.
That I think that's why they chose heal as his ability, because it was a sensible direction for them to synergize them.
Yeah.
A lot of thought goes into what each abilities are, and trying to match the theme of making them stronger with synergy or on the base hero.
Why do you guys think Treant is an overall miss? Like, isn't his armor really useful in lane?
Yeah, but it's just boring.
I haven't had that much experience playing with him, but I always thought that he was one of the stronger ones.
I don't think anyone says he's weak, just that he's boring.
I think he's hot garbage, and I don't touch him.
Really? You think he's bad?
Like, occasionally I'll play him, but his card is a 1/1 creep.
Yeah, that's true.
He makes difficult lanes, but then the creeps still just do 1 damage, and he does 2, so it's not like he really pushes. Part of why he's an overall miss is that he missed Fantasy. All of his abilities are cards that aren't him, right? There's like Leech Seed and is Living Armor one? Maybe it's not anymore. I don't know, but like
It is.
Tree is like Overgrowth and Heal and Invisible, and he doesn't do any of those. He's just casually boring, giving armor to creeps, and that part's fine, and like it fits in some drafts, especially like red green, or if you have enough green where you make creeps, it works. But I think he's an overall miss because of the Fantasy, where he doesn't really, like, no part of his artifact character matches his Dota 2 character other than armor.
Yeah, I agree.
Perhaps. But still, I feel like if he's combined with one of those token or creep decks, it would be very useful.
Sure.
You know, that's just me. I personally haven't built a deck yet that makes use of it fully.
He looks strong, and then you play him and you're like, eh.
Yeah. Yeah, I
He
kind
just
of
makes
feel
a
that.
wall and he doesn't really do anything.
In
just like,
theory, I
okay.
think he's strong, but now that you mention it, when I actually play him, I feel very underwhelmed with his performance.
You can also just avoid him, and then he pushes 5 damage in a lane a turn, and then you're like, oh, okay. And then you just kill the other lanes, or go Ancient, or whatever you want to do. The other thing is his creep is a 1/1, so to play it on turn 1, people can often kill it with a blocker.
Yeah.
As we put our foot out the door, is there perhaps one more topic you guys would like to mention to the community and our dear listeners?
For me, it's been really hard being around Reddit recently. I guess last week it got kind of bad in the artifact subreddit, where people are just focused on very little details and then deciding if they like or dislike the game over it. Or there was that poll about people wanting if they would have liked Artifact 1 updated instead of Artifact 2. And like, what is the purpose of that? That's not adding anything to our community. We've already picked the path we're going down. And so because you don't like Artifact 2 in its current state because we're still halfway through changing it, then you don't want this outcome? Like, I don't know. People are really having a hard time seeing the big picture here, that we're in the long haul and we have to be patient still for a bit, and that there's going to be a lot change still. And
Right.
yeah, it would just be nice if people could Like, if you don't have the mental capacity to stick around for a beta, then go play another game until it's ready. Because it's not ready. So don't make up your mind about the game at this state. I don't know. It's been frustrating me a bit.
Yeah, honestly, like, if you're a fan of this show and listening to us, know that we do not support your negativity, okay? It does not sit well with us. We are not just... Okay, and it's not just about us being, like, sucking Valve's thumb or whatever. It's just about actually having patience with a game that's in the beta. We do not support your negativity towards that because it doesn't help anyone. Everybody wants Artifact to be a good game and succeed. So... bear in mind that this is just temporary and everything can be changed, and if you just give it a bit more chance, like for example the mana thing, I hated it at first, but when I had played 5 games then I realized this is fun, this is good. So yeah, we do not support your negativity. Know that. We are judging you. We are judging you.
In my case, it's more a case of how people voice their feedback. I have no issue at all with people not feeling the beta or not feeling the direction in which Artifact 2.0 is moving, but I just don't like when people like straight away are like, oh my god, do you even know what you're doing, you know?
Yeah, any feedback is good feedback.
Yeah, just don't be a negative asshole.
Exactly. Like, when we are speaking about negative feedback, we don't mean criticism. We mean the way in which it is voiced.
Cool.
But here at the Secret Shop podcast, of course, we have no such issues with our dear listeners.
We love you. We love you, dear listeners.
Oh my god. Hit subscribe. Speaking of, where can they subscribe to you, Anger?
You can find me at youtube.com/angermania. I tweet at twitter.com/angermania with a P at the end. And I'm right now probably streaming Artifact on twitch.tv/anger_.
I'm on Twitch, as usual, at Kiwi_streaming. Streams have been a little bit less common this week, but I'll try and get out of my funk.
Get to work.
Very nice.
We need you. I need you. I need to learn because I'm losing a lot.
Yeah, maybe we should do some lessons again.
Yeah, just live on each stream.
I'm down. Our wonderful producer is megaRammy on Twitter and occasionally on Twitch.
And you can find me on Twitter at Cymen90. Thank you so much for listening. You can find everything you need about our podcast on secretshop.gg. Thank you so much for listening. Goodbye.
Peace.
Bye.
Come again.